Elizabeth Judith, your courage coach, with your cup of courage for the day and continuing my series on dealing with negative people. Again, if this is a topic that is of interest to you, I really suggest that you start with part one and go from there, because a lot of this is building on the previous videos and we don't have time to recap. But today we're going to be talking about the positive emotions, the positive thoughts, and the positive vibrations that we can focus on instead of resorting back to our habitual negative response to these situations. In earlier videos, I talked about how most of us have a conditioned response when we start hearing people talk negatively or behave negatively, that we resist that. We actually can even be afraid of it. We feel like they are going to bring us down. They can keep us from the experience or manifesting the things that we want in our life, or it's going to be bad for them, or we judge them. We feel like they should not be doing that, and we can feel angry or irritated, or a whole plethora of negative emotional responses and thoughts to whatever it is that's going on. And that is what is generating our negative experience. Not so much what the other person is doing. It's our negative response to what's going on. And it, for most of us, has become a habitual response for us. So we want to change that habit. And if you've listened to my videos before on changing habits, you'll know that research has shown we can't just stop responding in our habitual way to some sort of stimulus, which in this case would be the negative person around us, the negative behavior, the negative talk. We have to actually replace that response behavior with something else. So that's really what we're talking about here. We need to be aware of our other choices, the positive choices that we can go to. That's what all these tools are really about, so that we can replace that conditioned negative response with some other better choices. And so what are those more positive emotions? Well, the highest vibration of all is love. But that can be a pretty big leap for us, especially initially when we are being bombarded with this negativity. For me, one of the easiest ones to go to that's still way up there vibrationally is compassion. And there are other higher vibration emotions as well. There is empathy and curiosity and forgiveness and understanding and gratitude, right? So how do we generate more of that? Well, I think for most of us, we can start with just acknowledging that we are not perfect. You know, we ourselves have had moments where we have lashed out, that we have blamed other people, that we have gotten caught up in our circumstances, and we can feel it, the effect, and we can be jealous and angry and all those negative responses, and we can talk about it, and we can, again, lash out. We have exhibited, for the most part, everything that we are seeing over there that we are judging and saying that we don't like. We know what that feels like. And a lot of times we actually expect things of other people. We get disappointed, feeling they should do better, when in truth they can't, maybe in that moment. We can only put out what we've got within us. So if people are exuding this negativity, the truth is that's what's active in them right now. At least in that moment, that's basically who they are. And we can empathize enough with that. We know that that feels terrible, right? And we also have experienced that we often, we feel like they should choose better. But I know I have myself. I know that even though I even know better, There have been times when, sure enough, I know better, but there I am, I'm triggered, and sure enough, I'm resorting back to my old habitual, small, negative, limiting pattern. And for the most part, we do the best we can. I know I'm all about that we are at choice. And the truth is, that is the truth. But we actually have to practice that. And it's a skill and it's a muscle that we get better at and better at. And we're all at various degrees of awareness and of strengthening that muscle. And it helps to be aware that hurt people hurt. And a whole other video I could talk about how basically any actions that we take, whether it's misguided or not, is usually some attempt to try to fulfill some need that is not being fulfilled in us. So if we can try to keep that in mind when we are witnessing this person's behavior and have some compassion for it. When we have that negative energy within us, we know that doesn't feel good. And if we're struggling with it just being in their presence, they're going to have to leave with that. And if they're chronically like that, oh my goodness, can we not have a little compassion for that suffering? Because trust me, if that's what they're spewing out, they are suffering. And if we can get curious about that, if they exude that behavior habitually, that, is that part of their genetic makeup? Oh my goodness, can you imagine having to deal with that? Or, what did they experience early in life that taught them and conditioned them that this is how they have to approach life? Or maybe they are just having a bad day. Maybe they didn't get enough sleep. Get curious about what that could be. Have compassion for it. Maybe you could forgive them for it, right? And it's not really about condoning their behavior. It's really about setting you free. Because when we judge them, when we make that wrong, when we resist that and fight back about that, and we have all of the negativity going on about that, what's happened is our vibration is not that different than theirs at that point, and we've got ourselves stuck in the same thing. We want to free ourselves from that. And I'll talk to you even more in another video about the gratitude. It'll probably be in a video about something about mindset, but it definitely encompasses the emotion of gratitude as well, which is another very high vibration. But when you're encountering these situations, if you can start to empathize with them, remember when you've felt that way, even if theirs might even be a little bit bigger or a little bit more excessive or more negative than you've ever been, whatever, you can usually empathize with that. You can remember a time when you lashed out, when you were negative, and it didn't feel good. And, they could be really having a tough day. They could be having a tough decade. You never know what people are struggling with. And if you can just have some empathy and compassion for that, get curious about that. Forgive them for it. And we'll even talk more about how you can be grateful for it. That's going to be a great strategy for you. And the more you can focus on that and use these energies when you're doing the pre-planning that we talked about, when you're setting those powerful intentions before the event and you're asking yourself, how do you want to feel and who do you want to be? Use these higher vibration emotions as part of that so you can build that up and strengthen that. And you're going to see that you're really going to be able to transform your experience around this. I hope you find that helpful. Keep tuning into these videos. We've got a few more to go. We really want to help empower you. That's my goal, to empower you in these situations to stay positive and maybe even have a positive influence as well. We want you to go out there and live from your courageous heart.